Do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
What the f*** is that, dude?
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? I hope you had a great Easter. I know I promised you a show over Friday or Saturday or Sunday or Monday, and none of it actually eventuated. Well, I can tell you that I have had a very interesting last few days. Sunday spent with my mum, which was nice. It was nice to be able to do that without carrying stitches or burns or other accoutrements to Easter Sunday lunch. Look at this. All my fingers. Still working. And you might say, gee, Carl, what's so surprising? Well, last we sort of spoke, if you were watching on the Nun2K channel or the YouTube channel, I did a short live saying that I wouldn't be doing a live. I think I don't know what night was that, Thursday night, because I was working on batteries with the bus. I am not an electrician. I am not an auto electrician. I am pretty good at telling positive from negative, but colors sometimes elude me. And, well, let's just say there was no smoke. There was no smoke where there wasn't meant to be smoke. And I got so empowered by looking at the batteries and doing what I did on Thursday that Friday I continued along that exciting vein because I really couldn't fix anything. I needed to go and get a charger and a few other bits and pieces. And who knew Super Cheap Auto was open on Good Friday? Spent my day playing around in the bus trying to get battery to charge. Thought I managed to do that over the course of 24 hours or so. That didn't eventuate actually, and went back today, and it had lost a lot of its charge already. So had to go back, install a new battery. And today that meant taking out all the house batteries, all the solar batteries, all the and this is on a slide out shelf, if you like, that comes out the side of the bus, but it doesn't come out the side of the bus. The cables don't allow it to come all the way out the bus, thankfully, because 3 very, very large batteries dropping out of the bus would be ugly and probably quite expensive to fix. So anyway, I'm really good. You should be very aware of this, folks. I am very good at pulling things apart. If you need anything pulled apart, I'm your boy, all right? And if you don't need it put back together, I'm especially your boy, because, wrecking things is something I apparently have been doing all my life, if you ask mum and dad. Well, can't ask dad anymore, but... So, yeah, pulling things apart, very good at. Very, very good. Putting them back together, there are many stories... many stories that I could tell you, and friends could tell you about me trying to put back things I've pulled apart. Most of them end in tears or trips to the hospital, if I'm honest. I'm not quite Tim the Toolman Taylor, but I'm not far off. Today, I had the help of a mate, and he's a fella that you're going to get to come to know in the coming days, weeks, months ahead. His name's Daniel. And I've known him, worked with him for on and off for the better part of 30-odd years. We've known each other. He has just as many of the skills that I have in the radio industry and in the video business as well. In fact, he's got quite a few more skills than me in that area. And he has a few more skills in setting up radio stations. Who knew? So DT, as you will come to know him, came over last week and we had a bit of a chat about seeing whether or not I could convince him to come on board and join us here at the Voice of Freedom for absolutely no money, but all of the glory. And he said, sounds like radio. Yeah, I'm in. So we're both adopting that same principle. It sounds like radio, looks like radio, and it's going to pay like radio really badly. So we're both very excited to get behind it and get it finished. So DT has voluminous amounts of knowledge on systems that we use to get radio stations running, so to speak, and online. So between him and another radio mate of mine who I'll be chatting with later this week about our new online website, which I don't think there is anything on there at the moment, but fbnmedia.online will be the FBN Media website. So we're in the process of creating that at the moment. And so today's meetings with DT, and of course his help and ability to remember to take a photo of all the things going to the top of the battery and the bits, because all my batteries run in series, right? And if you're electrically minded, you'll know what that means. I have a basic understanding of it, but I do know that I've got to wire it up the same way that I unwired it, so to speak. And I immediately started unwiring things without taking photographs of anything. But thankfully for DT, and this is part of the reason why he's joining us, he took photos. So in theory, got a new battery in the bus. How bloody expensive are they, can I ask? Well, I don't have to ask. I can tell you how bloody expensive they are. Bloody expensive. If you thought your car battery was costly, think again. Anyway, we've got that in there. The thing will start now without any problems whatsoever and should be good at least for a warranted 20 months, I think they gave me, but they reckon I'm good for 3 years. So, yip ya. Fingers crossed when we get out into the sunlight, because she's housed in a shed and doesn't get too much sunlight through that. So fingers crossed when I get her out of the shed this week and start getting a bit of sunlight through the solar, I start seeing the little charging batteries go up on them too, because otherwise I'm likely to see a little bit of smoke. Well, probably smell it more than see it, because they'll set fire underneath me, which will be interesting. Anyway, let's move away from the bus and my foibles with that. My microphone's got a bad attack of the sags, which is distressing at the best of times. Try and tighten that up a bit more. Digital ID. So last week, digital ID was swept through the Senate. There was no debate on it. And for me, wasn't surprising at all that it got through, not in any way, shape or form. What was surprising to me was the people who didn't vote, who weren't there when the vote was held. And there were 8 Liberals who could have blocked this there and then in the Senate had they chosen to get off their asses and do their jobs that they are paid a 6-figure salary to do on behalf of the people. Now, if any of them had an excuse that I was on the phone talking to my constituents at the time who were rallying me to go and say no to this preposterous friggin' bill, oops, I spoke a bit long and missed it. Interestingly, the woman who proposed this, Labor's Katie Gallagher, never turned up for the vote either. They don't want their hands on it, folks. What more evidence do we as a nation need that our politicians are not acting on behalf of the people in any way, shape or form? Or are we as a nation truly that friggin' stupid that we need that level of their assistance? Sometimes I wonder, maybe we are that stupid. Certainly those that are still asleep and these things are not raising questions, like now in their head, I don't think they're capable of ever waking up. I don't think we should be wasting too much more time on them because they're clearly, sorry, this microphone's driving me mad. I need to tighten something a bit harder and move it. Right. Good. Stay. Good microphone. We need to speak to these politicians in your electorate, these senators, right? And it's very easy to get a list of the ones who voted for this. If you live in a Labor electorate or a Green electorate, you voted yes. And I say you did because those people are in that place representing your feelings. Now, if you genuinely feel that the vast majority of people in the electorate you live in do not support what your senator has voted for here to push this bill forward, then I urge you, get on the horn, start emailing them. I would say email them all, but there's no point. They don't read anything that doesn't come from someone inside their electorate. So everybody you know in your electorate, you need to motivate to write to your, well, now it's through the Senate. So the only thing you can send to your local senator now is abuse. And the 8 Liberals, I think there were 2 Oh, no, Lydia Thorpe was one of the independents, I think, who didn't vote. She never turned up for it. Katie Gallagher, the one who put this abysmal digital ID bill forward, never turned up to raise her hand in support of it. That should be telling to you, to any half-minded Australian. It should be telling that the person who has put up the most invasive, personally invasive digital ID security bill in the nation's history didn't think it important enough to go and stick her hand up for. I don't know what you think about that. Does it raise questions? I mean, obviously she's just... But if you are going to write a letter to someone, and I'm unconvinced as to the abilities or the passions or the... I think all it does is legitimise those people who are acting in a pretend role in that parliament. Sure, there might be some who think they're doing and working in a legitimate government, but they're not. And I'm hard pressed to know how anybody who has been sworn into that place can't know that it is a corporation. It is so plainly obvious to anybody who cares to do the research and not make up excuses for it that you can't back up with research. That's the other thing. A lot of people come up with excuses as to why the government is not a corporation. How golf didn't sell us out, and yada, 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 yada. Well, show me the research that backs you up. Did I say something to upset somebody? I think so. Turns out my Telstra modem just had a conniption. Shit itself. Turns itself off, and the world goes wild. Anyway, digital ID bill. We're not completely out of the woods yet when it comes to protection, but the people you need to write to are the members now of the House of Representatives, because the bill goes from the Senate to the House of Representatives, where it can also just be pushed through if Labor can get the numbers. And let's face it, they own the Greens. They have at the moment, I think it's a 2-person majority in the House. So there'd have to be some convincing going on the other side that this is not something you want the person you put your vote for, or ended up being elected to the position of being your spokesperson in that house. You make them know that the digital ID bill is not something you want them to approve or yay on. They must nay that vote. And you've got to flood their office. You've got to get everybody that you know in your electorate to email this person on a daily basis. Flood them. Make sure they know that if they put their hand up and vote for the digital identification bill to be made law, then that will be the last time you, and probably anybody else you know, will vote for them, and they can expect to be turfed out at the next election. The only thing these people understand is losing their job. You know, sadly, weak, pathetic. Oh, I've got a lot of other names for them, but let's just leave it at weak and pathetic at the moment. But extremely weak, hideously pathetic, and well, you know, it doesn't bear thinking about anymore. Oops. I'm trying to put in a picture I can show you. In fact, there's a couple of pictures I wanted to show you. I received one over the weekend. I'm just trying to see where that is. It is a great meme that was sent to me, and I think I can't find it at the moment, but I will dig it out and have it for you tomorrow night. It's a great meme that encapsulates everything we're looking for, I believe, in people to represent us in a government, in a true government, a government by, for, and of the people. That's what government is meant to be, not some bureaucratic monster that can lord over our lives, enforce punitive punishments, particularly cash. They like cash. Locking you up is the last resort because they don't make any money out of you while you're in jail. You're a cost. It's like being in hospital. So you're worth more to them on the outside than you are on the inside. So to be on the inside, you've got to try and buck the system, know something more about it, don't take a plea deal. And I'll put Paul Offey up as a great example of just that. A man who refuses to take a plea deal because he did nothing wrong. And all the court is trying to do is get him to accept, we'll give you a lesser charge here, we'll do that. Oh, we're still going to keep your truck. No. Paul's not going to agree to anything. Oh, I'll agree to this, and we might give you your truck back. No. You put it in writing that if he agrees to a minimal charge, that he will get his truck back, then it'll be considered. But no, they're not going to do that. They're going to try and make sure that they get him to the steps of the Supreme Court in Canberra on the 26th of June, 666. How interesting. And they're going to go their hardest to try and put Paul Offey in jail for 40 years. The Freedom Truck. I'm sorry. How many of the people who've flown on the Lolita Express have gone to jail? Forget that. How many Australians who've committed crimes and now call themselves members or ex-members of Parliament have never spent a day inside jail for their convictions, their crimes that they have been convicted of? Those convictions hidden from us by secret agreement. The Labor Party also been very good at doing secret deals with immigrants. And we know that the Home Affairs Minister, what a useless cloth-eared bint that thing is. Holy shit. If she's walking around your electorate and you actually voted for her, give yourself a really good talking to. Try and analyze people a little bit better. That woman is downright dangerous. And she has been caught red-handedly trying to hide detailed information about these 149 immigrants that the Labor Party used our money, the taxpayer money, millions of dollars worth of it, mind you, to argue for the release of 149 illegal immigrant detainees who have been charged with various different things, from either no or very minor crime, all the way through to some of the classics, including murder. Now, if it wasn't for one of the stafflings that was made to sit at an estimates meeting late in the evening, she was told, you'll have all the answers to the questions, but do not provide the answers if he does not ask specific questions. Well, thankfully, Senator James Patterson, who has been performing, I've got to say, bloody brilliantly in the last few weeks, he asked the right questions. He knew exactly what to ask. And of course, this woman gave her responses directly. So we know that there are 7 murderers amongst the 149 that they let out. We know that 73 of the 149 do not have any kind of monitoring on them at all. No ankle monitoring, no reporting, no nothing. They could be anywhere in the country. The Commissioner for Border Security, who is not Australian, he's a POM. He might be a naturalized Australian by now. Who knows? But interesting that he's a man who's worked in this business for 44 years. So if that's the case for all 44 of them, I mean a bloody significant portion of them, have not been in Australia. They've been in Europe. They've been working through the UK, because that's where I suspect he comes from, or came from. I wonder what ties and links he has back. Bit like Maggie Thatcher back in the 80s when she threw all the unionists, the mining unionists, out of the UK. Where did they come? They came here. You ever wondered why when we were growing up all the union leaders had funny accents? Scottish, Welsh, British, all sorts of British. It's because they came down here and brought their brand of politics here to our unions. Nothing's changed. Still happens. We've got to get better at discerning the people we vote for. And the people that we put up to replace them have to be better. Simply better. You won't be looking for the golden handshake at the end of it, because trust me, in what comes next, there won't be any golden handshake. I would advocate, personally, that anybody in the bureaucracy doesn't get to vote. No unions, no nothing. If you're in the bureaucracy, you're there to serve. And you can only serve a maximum of 8 years. Maybe 10. But you'll be training your replacement for the last 4 of them. So I've got some interesting plans for immigration too. And should we get enough people willing to stand up in their community and represent us, all of us, from your community, from mine, from Cass's, from Vince's, from Sunflowers, and Veronique's, Daniel, Dusty, A1, I beg your pardon, J1. We need to find people to stand up and represent us by, for the people. By, for, and with the people. And it won't be hard to do, because when this current corporate bureaucracy and fake government is removed, we can start from scratch. And yes, of course there will be laws. You're not going to be allowed to go and kill people. There will be consequences for your decisions to do so. And if you've not gleaned anything out of the last few years watching this show, is the fact that I've been trying to drill into everybody that gives this show a go, that God gave us choice, free choice. And with that choice comes consequence. Sometimes those consequences are unintended. Sometimes those consequences are foreseeable, but we don't foresee them because we rush into the decision, the choice that we're presented with. Sometimes we have to rush into those choices. And that happens a lot when we're young, because we're moving very fast. You know, we're very busy people and very important. And we make bad choices. Well, not necessarily bad choices. I like to call them educational choices, because when you make a choice, any choice, it is educational. If it's a successful choice, it will educate you how to make more successful choices. If it is an unsuccessful choice, then from there consequences ensure, which means you'll be put in a position to make other choices that are maybe less desirable to your ultimate goal. So one would hope through our learning years, our younger years, but generally through our whole life of experience, we learn to make better choices. better decisions. We foresee consequences. It's a bit like, when we were kids, and I'm sure when your kids were little, don't touch the stove. Don't go near the fire. It's hot. Now, invariably, there's tears somewhere along the line because somebody forgets and walks up and touches something they shouldn't. And sometimes those consequences are horrible. A pot of boiling water pulled over a 3-year-old. Happened to a friend of mine. So sometimes they're not so bad. Sometimes it's just a little burn, bit of a kiss, some ice on it, all good. Sometimes there's a blister. Sometimes that blister gets infected because we make the choice not to look after it. Or we make the choice not to even think about it. That too. The choice of doing nothing also has consequences. So you need to make sure that your local representative understands the consequences for voting yes to passing the digital identity bill when it comes before the House in, I want to say May. I am encouraged that the Senate now has spoken out and said that the bill will be looked at again and reviewed in some way. There may well be an opportunity for questions to be asked, for public comment to be raised. But at the moment, the Labor Party, who are forcing this through behind your backs, are doing it in the most disgusting, dirty, and openly deceitful way that only I think politicians could. And I'm not going to call flavours particularly, but right now, I would say Labor are leading the party or leading the field. Not by a long shot. There are 8 Liberals who removed themselves from the Senate that night and didn't vote. There are a couple of independents. And there were 2, I think, Labor people. And Katie Gallagher, the woman who brought this bill before the Senate and tried to make it law there, or get the first step of it done there, is responsible for that, never turned up to put her support in favour of adopting it. Why is that? Keep asking yourself, why is that? Today is April the 2nd. I hope you didn't get pranked too bad yesterday. Sunflower, lovely to see you. Hope the fam's doing well and you had a lovely Easter. Telstra told you to update your phone because they're disconnecting 3G. Oh, wow. Well, I didn't realize that they were doing that because it was such a vital part of regional Australia, 3G. They now obviously feel they've got 4 and 5G coverage. And I can tell you that there are still very large blank spots in, actually along the Pacific Highway, I want to say it's down towards Taree. There are blank spots there sort of after Coffs Harbour for an hour or two. There are blank spots up in far north Queensland, vast areas, in fact, in far north Queensland. Not even in far north Queensland, I want to say after Maryborough. And up between Maryborough and Gladstone, it's only intermittent service between places like Miriam Vale and Gingin, and Marmore. Some of you will know these places. And further north, I don't think there's anything at all regarding cell service much after the Maryborough, St. Lawrence, sort of just north of Rocky, to just south of Serena, or just south of Serena. So you got sort of 3 hours there where you don't have any coverage at all. And further north again, I could go on and on. But Telstra, it seemed tonight, don't want to be playing the game. And my modem is now showing only 2 green lights and 1 very red one. So, yep, they've done something. What that? I see you're in the chat, mate. I hope you're doing okay. I didn't get up the coast over Easter. Should I get up there this week, I will pop in if the opportunity presents. And I trust all things are going well in your part of the world, mate. Look after yourself. Oh, and I suppose I should say, because What has got some patches, and I've been getting some emails. In fact, Tricky, who's in the Rumble chat, has sent through. They're having a lot of success with the patches too. I'm talking about the X39 patches. Today, I got a little thing from LifeWave. Oh, there it is. It says LifeWave in case you're wondering what's on it. But there you go, a little badge, which is lovely. It comes in a very flash box. So if you'd like a badge, I can help you. But you'll have to be involved with the patches. And the patches, I've got to say, I got one on right now. I woke up this morning, my neck was, I knew it was going to have trouble with it all day. So I thought I'll get a bit proactive and put the patches on. It helped suppress the headache, but it was still there in the background. I had a couple of Nurofen, but what else did I manage to achieve today? Well, I did a shitload. A couple of big meetings this morning, battery changes with DT in the bus, sorting out a whole heap of stuff there, getting back here, mowed lawns front and back. And, oh, I didn't tell you the best part of the weekend. The reason I still have fingers, I bought a soldering iron. So it turns out when we go out and do a live broadcast from somewhere that may not have power, and I can't get the bus there to be our own power source for it, we need to be able to have an on-site power system, which involves a battery, funnily enough. My weekend has been filled with batteries. So got a big deep cycle battery and a battery box. The battery box had all these Anderson plug points on the side of it, and all these wires to connect into the battery inside and all that flash. I didn't have anything that I could plug into it that had an Anderson plug on it. So that meant I had to go and cut off plugs and put Anderson plugs on my thing. Oh. Now, ordinarily, you people might think that's a great thing, but me and soldering irons, I've got scars. I can show you. I built a drone once, a race drone, that has more bits of my dried blood in it than it does just about any other form of organic substance, and I've run it through a few mozzie clouds. So yeah, it's me and soldering irons. Anyway, I remembered how to solder and managed to put these plugs together. Vince, I'm not sure if you're in the chat or you're asleep, but if you're in the chat, you'll be so proud of me. They work. I am quite chuffed about them. So LifeWave patches, if you want to be involved, you can go and find out more by going to that link that's there. It'll show you the various different packs that you can get. If there's two of you that want to be involved in these patches, then it's probably better to get a silver pack. I can tell you from my experience and many, many others, probably 98%, I haven't done the percentage, but certainly let me be conservative and say 95% of the people that I have given the patches to have received significant benefit out of and continue to receive significant benefit out of them. I was talking to Carol, who, if you like, was my first guinea pig. I was talking to her about a week ago, and she is now at a point where she doesn't put a patch on every day because she doesn't need to. She's got more energy than ever. She's walking around, powering around, in fact, and her husband John is still grumbling that, you know, he's got to try and keep up with her. Yeah, she's loving it. But if she goes on a long drive, then she puts a patch on then, because she knows sitting in that position for a long period will, you know, stress out her lower back. So she puts them on then, has absolutely no problems. So for some people, they are an everyday thing for as long as you want to do them. For some others, they're an everyday thing until they're not. If you forget for a day or two and you don't have any pain, then fine. If the pain returns on day 3, okay, you know, you can get 2 days without them. Keep trying them. It's the best you can do if it's going to help you, and it's better for you, in my opinion. It's only my opinion, but it's better for you than shoving in some of those opioid meds, and clearly having a better effect on those people who have been in that position, Carol being one of them, who was on quite significant doses a couple of times a day, just so she could function with the pain in her back. She's off them, which was her desire. She wanted to get off them. So she's off them. She has no pain, and is loving life. I know we haven't heard much from Kate, and Kate, if you're watching, I'd love to hear from you. I know Kate had a bit of trouble there at one stage getting more patches, not because there weren't patches to get, but just through a few other things, which I won't go into right now. But hopefully we've sorted that for you, at least in the short term, and really keen to see how you're going. We don't want you going back to bed, so to speak, and you and your magnificent daughter can go out camping, which I hope you had the opportunity to do over Easter. That would be, that would be wonderful. I'd love to hear that if that's what happened. Yes, talking about prisons. Yep, you're 100% right. I should have rephrased what I said. Yeah, prisons, they don't make money out of you. And technically, they don't make money out of you. They make money out of us when you go to prison. Because prison, as All the Kisses says here, or Triple X, I don't know. It's a bit of overkill, isn't it? Prison is a business, and it's a bloody huge business. And in fact, a business in most parts of the world owned by a company called Serco, of whom Prince William is the principal shareholder. Did you know that? Prince William is the principal shareholder of Serco. They're the people who look after all our people, our detainees, our offshore detainees, our onshore detainees, and in every privately run prison in Australia. Pretty confident that every prison is now privately run in Australia. Privately run through contract. State government might say they still own the prison. Federal government, well, we don't really have federal prisons, so well, at least not to my knowledge. There are a few camps set up for it, so be aware of those. But yeah, I would be little careful about all that. Anyway, moving on. Joe Biden. I guess the one message I need you to get across is that we need not to have any representative you have in your electorate voting for this bill. Now, email them, flood them, send them letters, ring them, do everything you've got to do to make sure they know it'll be a decision that will cost them their political future, right? Because should they make this decision, that you will go out to work against them being re-elected in your community, just on the basis of that one decision. And I'm sure you've got a few like-minded people in your community, in your electorate, that you know that will support you in this. Maybe you've got some friends and family who also think digital ID, they may not agree with everything else that we're doing, but they might agree that digital ID is not something we want in this country. Then get them to do it too. It's important. Really, really important. It may not work, but it's really, really important. Over 120,000 new arrivals came to this country in January. The government is flooding this country with migrants, trying to hide from us the fact that we are in a depression. All these people coming in, all these rents going through the roof, housing prices going through the roof, are giving the economy a false impression, if you like. All right, because all these cashed up Indians are coming in, and Sri Lankans and Afghanis, Syrians, Africans from all different interesting little countries in Africa, all coming in, all getting as much government assistance as the government can give them, and they can give them a hell of a lot. They're giving them a hell of a lot more than they give anybody that was born in this friggin' country. And why are they doing that? Well, that's because they're hiding the fact that we are in a depression. The inflation is through the roof. But through all of this influx of taxi driving, Uber driving, bloody Because, oh no, well, 7-Eleven owning. Folks, they're all out there finding a house. And they're all going to get priority over you and I because we know that's happening. We know there are government incentives. I know people who own property who've been approached by government with those incentives and knocked them back. They're not coming to you and I to help us, or the thousands of people sleeping rough every night under bridges in their cars with their kids cramped up in the back seat. Some of them lucky enough to have a caravan or a trailer camper, and they're pulled up beside rivers. Go for a long drive on a big highway. You'll find them. Don't tell yourself, oh, they're just parked up for an hour or two. They're living there. They're living there because they cannot go anywhere else. I was reading a story over the weekend about a very, very senior nurse in Sydney, works at the RPA. He's been in the industry for 30-odd years. He's a very, very senior nurse, makes over six figures a year plus, and cannot afford to buy his own house. And keeps getting kicked out of his rental properties with his 2 kids, even though he's a very good tenant. They keep kicking him out because they have a rule down there that you can get kicked out for no reason. No breach, no nothing, just end of the contract, get out. And what do they do at the end of that contract? They put the rent up. Oh, well, we're going to do a little renovation and then, we're going to rent it out again. Oh, okay, great. So they go in and change a tap. And then a week later, it's back on the market for, another 50% above what you were paying because they knew you weren't going to pay it, or they felt embarrassed asking for it. So they kick you out instead, and instead make you go and try and find somewhere else, fighting with a cashed up government-supported immigrant who is going to take precedence over you every time. Because right now, Australia doesn't have priority. Australia was always planned to be a minority white country. Now, I found that a little hard to believe initially, a minority white country. But in 1966, there was a White Australia plan that was put together, how white was Australia. So that'll give you an idea of Europeans overall, European Australians, 98.7%, 97% in WA, 59%, nearly 60% of the Northern Territory, nearly 100% everywhere else. Oh, Queensland, a little lower. Tasmania, I think, was also high 90s. I don't know why. Probably should have shrunk that picture down so we could see it a bit more. New one has been released, though. So how white are the states today? Well, they're dropping. And the plan was, our immigration plan was to make Australia minority white government, or white, I should say, not government, but minority white by the year 2070. But at the rate we are hauling immigrants in, non-white immigrants, from countries that do not have Christian backgrounds, all the things that Ricardo stresses in his A1 mantra, that everything about A1 is Christian values, Christian country, Christian laws, and morals, all that absolutely being disregarded 100% by the bureaucrats that are running the system. You can't blame the minister. The minister in 99% of the cases is an idiot. And if they're not an idiot, then they are a knowing participant in this fraud on both the people and the nation. And there will be consequences for that decision. Now, they might get lucky if they're an idiot. I don't think so. They might get a little bit more leeway. Might mean the guillotine instead of the rope, maybe. Speaking of guillotines and ropes, Joe Biden has been stumbling around out in public, having a bit of a chat about what he wants to do about that bridge in America that the big boat ran into.
It's my intention that federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge. And I expect
Listen to that one more
It's my
time.
intention that federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge, and I expect the Congress to support my effort. This is going to take some time. The people of Baltimore can count on us, though, to stick with them at every step of the way until the port is reopened and the bridge is rebuilt. You know, we're not leaving until this job gets done. Not leaving until then. So I just want to say God bless everybody who got everyone harmed this morning and their families. And may God bless the first responders, many of whom risking their lives. And the reason I'm not going to take a lot of questions, there's remaining issues that are open that we got to determine what's going to happen in terms of the rescue mission and the like. But
Do you plan to go to Baltimore, sir? And if so, how quickly?
I do, and as quickly as I can. That's what
You said the federal government's also going to pay for the repairs. I'm just curious. This was a ship that appears to be at fault. Is there any reason to believe that the company behind the ship should be held responsible? And then also, you
that
mentioned
could be, but we're not going to wait for that to happen. We're going to pay for it to get the bridge rebuilt and opened.
Okay. It's a semi-feasible argument. The government will fund the rebuilding of the bridge and then try and reclaim the cost of that rebuild back from the shipping company who ran their ship into it. But do you know what that means? That means no inquiry. And that means nobody going in and looking at everything surrounding what happened prior to and after that bridge was struck. That means a government-controlled inquiry at the very least, if there is going to be one, it'll be government-controlled and won't find any problem. We're building a new bridge. It's all getting done. And look, we're building it using new technology. It's absolutely fabulous. It'll be up in no time. The port will be back open real soon. I note that as far as I am aware, Biden hasn't been to Baltimore yet. And that video is a couple of days old. So don't know that he's going there. He might be more focused on other things like, I don't know, the solar eclipse, do you think? Don't know. Have a look at this.
Let's talk about the eclipse on April 8th that's happening and the connection it has with Easter. Watch this video get banned. I have a book. It's from the 1800s. Let's do this. So here's the book in all its glory. Right here it says, The Passion of the Lord from Palm Sunday to Easter Eve, April 1st to April 7th, AD 30. Let's turn a couple pages. The Resurrection and Ascension of Christ from Easter Day to Ascension Day, April 8th to May 17th, AD 30. If that's crazy, totally not crazy. Truth. Now let me walk you through each day. Palm Sunday, April 1st. Monday, April 2nd, he cleansed the temple. Tuesday, April 3rd was Jesus' last teaching. Tuesday night, Jesus told his disciples the time of his betrayal. And then on Wednesday, April 4th, he remained in Bethany until Thursday. Thursday, April 5th, they killed the lamb for the Passover meal. Evening and night of Thursday, April 5th, was the Last Supper. After supper, they went to the Mount of Olives and entered the Garden of Gethsemane. This is where he is taken and held captive. Good Friday, April 6th, he was arraigned and then taken to a place called Golgotha, the place of a skull, also known as Calvary. This is where he was put on the cross. Is it really a cross? But before he was placed on the cross, he was tortured and placed in a cell overnight. Saturday, April 7th, the Sabbath. Pilate condemned him, and from 6 to 9 a.m. were the preparations for the cross. At 9 a.m., he was placed on the cross, hung on the cross for the next 3 hours, dying. This is where it gets really... My heart's freaking racing. I never read this before. Listen. It was now noon, but such a noon as had never been seen in Judea. The position of the paschal full moon precluded the possibility of a solar eclipse, and yet a supernatural darkness rested upon all the land, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, as if to veil the last agonies of the Redeemer from the eyes of men. But far deeper than that, darkness was the gloom that weighed upon the Savior's soul, as he bore the whole burden of the divine wrath for the sins of all men. He was on the cross all day until sunset, which was the beginning of the Sabbath. Saturday evening. Died in 6 hours, literally of a broken heart. Taken down from the cross and placed in a tomb. Sunday, April 8th, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The solar eclipse is nothing other than proof to us that it happened. Jesus died on the cross to save us from our sins. In the solar eclipse, that was the veil. That is the proof. That is the reminder to us. Just as the rainbow is a reminder to us that God will never flood the earth again, the solar eclipse is Monday, April 8th. Then Easter Sunday is Tuesday, April 9th.
There's a lot of interesting videos going around at the moment, and I would commend you going to YouTube if you feel the urge and typing in the sign of Jonah and seeing what you find. You should find a rather interesting video. It has a bit to do with gematria. It says an awful lot about this eclipse, but not just this eclipse. Pardon me. I feel like I've got a booger hanging out there. I've got a camera here. I can see if I've got a booger hanging out there. No, I don't. It's a very interesting video to have a look at. The Alpha and the Omega, if you know your Bible, that means something to you. There are certainly a lot of biblical references. I'm not saying religious references because this transcends religions. We are talking biblical and biblically historic events that have been foretold and have come to pass prior, and this could possibly be another one of them. That's why I say anything from April 8th onwards is going to be pretty interesting. And I say onwards because not for an indeterminate period. One of the prophecies, or one of the things that I've heard about this date in particular, is that while the 8th is important because it is the solar eclipse passing over, events may not happen on that date. They, on the other side, have up to 40 days, I'm told, to do their worst. And I guess we'll have to wait until maybe the 19th of May to find out if that's the case. I do think there is some geological anomalies that come with eclipses, and Japan springs to mind, the Fukushima earthquake, the underwater earthquake, and the tsunami that hit Japan, screwing up Fukushima. There was an eclipse that passed over Japan, over that part of Japan, 3 days prior. In history, there have been everything from volcanic eruptions to great earthquakes, sometime up to 30 to 40 days after the eclipse. And these, from my understanding, from certain people who know very Old Testament readings better than me, have been foretold, and they can show that and show them historically now as we look back in time that these were predicted from the earliest Bibles. Now, you hear me talk about the King James V Bible and as being basically the only one that I think is worth having. You want the Old Testament and New Testament version together. There are certain other versions of the KJV that you probably don't want. And I'm going to try and get a bloke on to have a talk about that. He knows a lot more about it than I do. There are some to be avoided because certain parts have been omitted completely, some others changed, and so you want to make sure you're getting the right one. But I had an interesting conversation over the weekend with people about the oldest Bible. They believed it was a Jewish Bible, and I tried to explain that that wasn't the case. The oldest Bible in the world came, or was found at least, in Ethiopia, and there is a very interesting story about the Israelites and their journey to the promised land, and how it's possible that these early Ethiopians were in fact the Israelites, and they have the book to prove it. Their Bible, written in a language called Ge'ez, G-E'-E-Z, is the oldest known to man, and I think was written about 800 years after Christ died on the cross. Could be a little bit wrong about that. I do want to get somebody in to talk further about that on a much deeper level, because I do think it's a very interesting topic, even if nothing comes out of dates. And you all know me and dates. I don't give them to you because I think they're going to come through. I think there might be something worth watching if it happens. But these are the dates that are being thrown up at the moment, and they're all to do with this solar eclipse. There does seem to be a lot of content coming out of America supporting theories of destruction. And if you haven't followed the show recently and haven't seen some of the images that I've shown, this would be what we're talking about. That is the map of the United States of America after a cataclysmic earthquake event that was centered over Indiana, or under India, a better way of putting that. Now, that's because there's a conjunction of two major fault lines, one 1,600 miles long going to the east and one 1,700 miles long going to the west coast and up towards Canada. And of course, there is what used to be California, which now just has a couple of high points and is well off the coast. That's because the San Andreas fault line, and there's another one it's attached to, both get activated in this scenario and sunk. The world turns. Now, yes, an earthquake could do that. What sort of displacement, what sort of shock waves, what sort of tsunamis are we going to expect from an event like that here in Australia? Well, the same people who came up with that map came up with this one. So this is a look at, well, the white outline is the current Australian coastline, and their redrawn version of that is interesting, to say the least. Some new land appearing just south of the continent, which is also interesting if you go back to our shows that we did about what's happening under the ocean in those areas. You know, some of those lines and square lines, and in that particular area, there is some very square, very large buildings. Well, square things. Don't know what they are. But interesting that it's obviously a reasonably shallow depth for it to now, under this drawing, come to the surface. And obviously there's a lot more of New Zealand than there currently is. I don't know what it means for places like Fiji. There is still a Fiji up the top there. There is still a word for Vanuatu. One might think there could be a few smaller islands or none at all. And New Caledonia looks like it's now part of New Zealand, which is, in theory, part of Australia, as the land bridge will be re-established between Victoria and Tasmania, and possibly between Tasmania and New Zealand. Can you imagine how rough that drive would be? But oh, what a drive. I'd have to get a hold of the 24/7 4x4 guys to see if they'd take me along on that one. I'd be very interested. What else did I have here to talk about? Oh, okay. Yes, there is another video that I wanted to show you. Now, we've all heard about the national strike that Como John and it seems Ricardo are pushing. I've had some word back that Australia won when asked if they would support the national strike. Malcolm Roberts replied that Ricardo said some bad things about Australia won, so they won't be supporting it. It all sounds very schoolyard to me, but I find it hard to fault Malcolm Roberts simply because Ricardo has said quite a great deal, and it would look fairly hypocritical of him, I suppose, to join forces with Ricardo after everything that's been said. I also think it would show extreme unity in the fact that we're willing to talk. This is, and I suffer from the same problem Ricardo does, right? They won't talk to me either because I've criticized them. I've criticized them to a point where they sent an emissary to say, please don't criticize me so much, or us so much. And that was just broadly speaking of all of them. And when I say all of them, I'm talking about, 3 or 4 specific politicians. Now, I have endeavored to support what they do. Malcolm Roberts has made some amazing speeches and he is doing important work. I think Antic is probably doing similar important work, although I'm not seeing as much of it. And Jared Rennick is also doing important work, particularly in these estimates meetings, these estimates committees where they're trying to make people accountable. The problem we have is that the bureaucrats are being protected by their ministers, and the ministers know all the filthy, dirty tricks. We'll take that question on notice. In fact, I watched a thing today where questions on notice had been supplied by James Patterson at the last estimates overspill, and he wrote to them a week before this particular overspill saying, these are the questions I'm going to be asking you for answers to, and they've still turned up without them and are making excuses about them. They make excuses about privacy, and this goes back to these immigrants. We can't give you too much identifying information because, people might identify them. No, we just want to know the level of criminality that our incompetent politicians argued with our money on behalf to have released from detention. That's all we're asking. Who the hell are we chasing here? Are we chasing child molesters? Yes, 37 of them, I think it was, as it turns out. I might have the number slightly wrong. I know there were 7 murderers. Lots of domestic violence issues. And apparently being charged with something doesn't affect your status as an immigrant here on a visa under very strict circumstances because you haven't been convicted. So no problems. You can commit a crime, be charged, but until you're convicted, you won't have a visa breach against you or be sent out of the country. We also have problems sending many of these people out of Australia back to their home country because their home country doesn't want them. They're not going to accept them. So where do we send them then? New Zealand? They'll be able to walk back if the bloody flood happens the way it looks like it's going to. We elected the people that are doing this to us, folks, or at least that's what they would have us believe. When are you going to take the wake-up pill? When are your friends going to see that wake-up pill? What will you need out of the House of Representatives vote to be assured they are not working for us? Would a yes vote to pass the digital ID do it? Great. Then they're going to give you something else to worry about, so you forget about that digital ID, and it'll only be an inconvenience. You'll have to argue with some pimple-faced 17-year-old who has to stand behind a cash register that works out the amount of change to give you, because that's, what the machine says. Or worse still, they'll take the 17-year-old out of it completely and make it an AI interface. And I believe that now, forget which bank, so I won't say, but one of the banks in Australia has now made the decision that AI will decide whether or not you get, this could have been a April 1st story now that I'm starting to come out of my mouth. AI I don't think will be in charge of you getting your money, but it was a bloody good April 1st story. Anyway, old mate came out with a bit of a statement about this. Well, the current state of the nation. Let's have a look. Well, try and have a look.
So now in Australia, you can own a property, but you can't live on it in a caravan. Hey? You tell me that this government is not our fucking enemy. Hey? How unbelievable is that? You cannot live in a caravan at this time when there's so many people that are homeless. This government is a joke. Councils and government need to be disbanded, especially local councils. They're nothing but a corruption cesspool. This is just a joke. I will never conform or comply to a corrupt, belligerent government. And that's what we have now. If I could, I would stop paying all my taxes immediately, because we are run by a belligerent, corrupt government that needs to be disbanded.
If I could, I would stop paying all my taxes immediately. Well, you can. What's stopping you? Well, I know what's stopping you. The fact that they'll come for you. Now, I don't know if he's still in the chat, but Darren Bergworth was very early into the room tonight, made a big statement. I have no money and a frozen bank account, and disappeared off. Now, I don't know if the account will have something to do with just that. You see, this national strike that's being called for, and what is involved in this national strike, what they're asking you to participate in, to try and get rid of this belligerent government corporation, I agree with 100%. However, Darren has been living that for 3 years. All right, he's 3 years into this, and they keep dragging him back to court. He's writing promissory notes and all sorts of things, and now he's got a frozen bank account. So I believe that that's part of what's being called for in this national strike. Now, I got an email purporting to be from Pirate Como John. It was an email sent to apparently all of us influencers. I hope you don't consider me an influencer. I don't consider me an influencer. But anyway, any of us that had, or all of us that had an audience, I suppose. And it was a demand for us to support the national strike. And if we weren't going to support it, then, you know, consequences, I suppose. It would lay us out as, you know, whatever the hell, Freemasons or whatever the hell. So I immediately replied, absolutely support it. And as the national spokesman, would you like to come on to the show and tell people about it, explain how it's going to happen and do all that? Well, I haven't heard anything back about that. And I'm unaware of the specifics of the whole thing. I mean, I know they had the website up for a bit and then that was taken down. I got sent another email. It was addressed to Ricardo. I sent them an email back saying, did you mean to send me Ricardo's email? If so, I got it. And then I got what looked like another weird one that came back, you know, some sort of, it looked like a form email saying, oh, you know, we sent out something we shouldn't or whatever. But look, it all seems a bit discombobulated to me. And if the national spokesperson can't come on a show and speak about what they're trying to do, they're going to try and get the likes of me and whoever else to speak about it. Well, love to do that, but you're the people putting all this together. And as near as I can tell, you know, Ricardo and his team have finally come to the common law argument and started to understand it finally. A lot of what they're planning to do is based in that area, from what I understand, but I might have that wrong. It would be better that the national spokesman came out and spoke, gave us a bit of an idea. But I don't know. At the moment, no more emails. So I guess we will just wait and see. However, broadly speaking, I do support a national strike. Do I support you putting yourself in a position where you could wind up Well, let me put it this way. You will be put in a position, unless there is a monumental shift in government and judiciary, and by that I mean they're all gone and we've got a new system. If that is allowed to happen and we get that new system, then all bets are off. But if we don't get that new system and we're stuck with what we have today, then you're going to find yourself going through this system, which is very difficult. And there's Greenies chatting at the moment in our Rumble chat and explaining a little bit of where Darren may have got things wrong. And how, I don't think he's explaining how to remedy it as such, but calls for you to stop paying your rates, your bills, your loans, all that sort of stuff is only going to create a lot of paperwork in your life. And unless you are willing to do it yourself, you are going to require a lawyer, and they're going to charge you a lot of money, and they're going to take all your money, and then they're going to split that with what's going to tell you to go fuck yourself with your argument, because you didn't dot the right T and didn't cross the right I. You didn't do it in the right order. You didn't put a sentence in the correct place. You don't understand what legalese actually is, and you wrote to them in Babel. Now, if what I've just said to you makes absolutely no sense, then don't be involved with a national strike, because you've got no idea what you're getting yourself into. If what I've just said does make sense to you, all power to you. Let's get involved. But it's a very difficult thing to try and get across the line. And I may have it wrong. Maybe I've missed a point. Maybe, and I'm not suggesting for a minute I've got it all correct and that I know what this national strike is all about. That's why I've asked the national spokesperson, the pirate Como John, to come on and talk about it, to speak. That's generally what spokespeople do. And he's never been shy about speaking before. But this one has some interesting connotations attached to it, particularly if you're going to be out publicly promoting it. And I'm not going to go into those tonight, but I'll let you think about what some of those connotations might be. Because they're very, very serious connotations. What else have I got here for you tonight? Look, I think the only thing I really want to say about that before I wrap it up is the first email I received was one to say, well, we've got to let bygones be bygones. I didn't know that there were bygones for there to be bygones to be bygones. However, if that's the way it's going to be played, absolutely. Let bygones be bygones. Let us wipe the slate clean. Well, let us come together. Let us discuss and work together to unify the nation, to believe in an action that will make an impact. Not one that's going to terrify families out of their homes or have them worried about them being thrown out of it, having their bank accounts frozen, having all sorts of coercion placed on them by constabulary and judiciary, and having all sorts of costs imposed on them by lawyers. There are other ways this can be done. It requires a bit of courage. It requires a bit of bravery. It doesn't require a gun, a weapon. Nothing like that. Nothing like that will work. But there is a way to do it. We just need the right people to stand up. Don't we, folks? Oh, are we starting to put together what I'm... No. Stand up, folks. Stand up. We've got to find the right people in the community to represent us, or all this keeps going. Your grandkids are just going to be batteries for the rich if they're allowed to live beyond food status. Pricks. Ross, if we all strike in action, yes, they can convict 26 million of you. It'll just take 46 years to do it. They just run you all through the courts, and once they've won one, they'll dismiss every case that comes after it. Okay? They have precedent then. All right? You're all going to use the same argument. So don't. Well, I could be wrong, Ross. I could be 100% wrong. And yes, if 126 million of us said, stop it now, and we're doing nothing until that government is removed, who is going to remove them? It will not be the Governor-General, because the Governor-General doesn't exist in the corporation, right? There's no authority inside the corporation. So that's the loophole a lot of people miss. The Governor-General is nobody, right? He's just a figurehead to convince us he's talking on behalf of the Queen. But he has no power. And I doubt he can sack this government. I doubt that's been possible since Gough Whitlam. All right? Malcolm Fraser will have made sure of that. So how and who do you go to? You go to the military. You go to the military. You go to the OC of every base in this country with a letter that has to go to the OC, the officer in charge. All right? You can walk up to the gate, mark it personal, private, and confidential. And inside it, beg them to come and help us. Point out that the whole point of the Defence Force is to protect Australia. At least that's what we've been told we are paying for since 1901. There are good men and women in our Defence Forces. Many wonderful, good men and women in our Defence Forces. Some of them with no rank beyond private or seaman or airman. Some have a little more rank. Some are officers. I hope many of you have honour. I hope many of you, if you are to receive a letter from a loved one, because if you've got loved ones in the armed forces, folks, you can write them a letter too and ask them to show their officer in charge, their boss. You can say, deliver this to your boss, son or daughter. Here's a letter for your boss, the head of your base, or the head of your unit. We have to directly appeal to the men and women who can fix this legitimately. Appeal to them directly. And yes, if you've got kids in the Defence Forces, use them. Write a letter to them. Explaining, because they may not understand the dire position this country is in. They may not understand that we are being led by a belligerent corporation masquerading as a government. Don't let them dismiss you because, oh, that's bullshit, Mum, or that's bullshit, Dad. Don't let them dismiss you. Let them try and research how wrong you are and prove it to you. I personally know many people across all bands of our Defence Forces. I've known many of them for many years, and some of them have only just begun their service. Now, I know the ones that have been in for years are honourable men and women. Honourable. They might have had to do things in wartime that, you know, no ordinary person should have to do. And they have done it on our behalf without our knowledge, but for our protection. These aren't officers for the most part. These are privates, corporals, lance corporals, sergeants. These are the workers, the people that get shit done in our defence forces, not the shiny bum brass. The Canberra bureaucracy, the political military. There's no point appealing to the political military. They've been bought out long ago. No, we now need to appeal directly to the people who hold the keys to the weapons lockers, who hold the keys to the training installations, who hold the keys to the helicopters, the jets, and anything else we need. And we need those honourable men and women to stand up to their evil bosses who will not come to the people's aid and arrest them. Lock them up. We'll deal with them once we get everything sorted. We need those honourable men and women. Will a strike help get them to us? Maybe. I know many of them support what we're doing. Many of them don't have the courage yet to step up and be that person that says to their boss, hey, listen, boss, I don't think that's what people in the country would really be supporting, that decision. Should we rethink that? It doesn't matter what rank you are. If you are given an order that you believe to be unlawful, you do not have to carry that order out. And you do have the right to arrest the officer who gave the order. Sure, you're going to want to be able to back all that up. But you have that right in the military. Ben Robert Smith was hung out to dry by the brass. The bastards who haven't been in a field looking through a sight or digging their own foxhole, saving their own ass in many a decade. They are political military who make political decisions to advance their political careers, but do very little to help the actual war fighters in our defence forces. They're truly disgusting human beings. Why would you support them? If you're in the defence forces, when you know the criminal acts that they are conducting, why would you allow that to happen? Why would you hurt the Australian people, your family, your friends, like that? Maybe it comes back to vibration. We've all got to raise our vibration, don't we? We've got to get to that next dimension. Trying to level up. Really am. But some of this shit makes me so angry. And I have to beg forgiveness from God for the revenge that I want to bring upon some of these people. And I know a lot of you feel the same. But we can't deal with revenge. We can only deal with justice. And what is just? What is honourable? What is the right thing for us all? But we can only push forward if we have some way of enforcing the people's authority. And the only way, unless the people pick up arms themselves, and we're not encouraging that, the only way that we get an enforcement arm is if the military join with us. So, big letter writing week, eh? As many as you can to your local politician about the digital ID. If you've got a son or daughter, or a trans, because there are a few of them in the Army, Navy, and Air Force these days, write them a letter. Try and put forward the position of the people of the nation, not just your position, but that will be one of the most moving. Explain to them the hardships that you're facing, which will be hard for a parent to do to a son or daughter. and explain that the decisions made by the government are the reason we are facing these hardships. The government is acting in defiance, clear defiance of the people's wishes. The media are not reporting it. And we have no help. Son, daughter, we need you, your skills, your friends, their skills, to come and save us. And it is save us. It is not help us. It is save us. Because our lives are in peril. This government is hell-bent on a path that we, the people, have been asleep at the wheel as they've directed us down it. We've got to get off it. It's not too late. But it takes action. Not just a like or a subscribe, although that's really helpful. It takes action. So a call for a national strike. If the national spokesperson wants to come out and talk about it, love to have him on the show. But a call for a national strike is, in my opinion, of limited value. I have yet to see how we can affect change with enough people in a short period of time. As somebody said, 26 million Australians not paying their rates or their taxes are great. Look, it doesn't have to be all your rates and taxes. Walk in and refuse to pay the GST. Next time you go to Coles, if you're still going there, next time you buy something, refuse to pay the GST. Now, that's going to induce an argument with the shopkeeper, but the shopkeeper at the end of the day doesn't really care. That some will, but they don't have to care whether or not you pay the GST, because if they can't claim it, they're not being paid as the tax collector. They've made every effort to collect it. You can say, well, I'm going to pay you what I owe you, and that 10%, which they would be giving to the government anyway, I'm not going to give to you. So the shopkeeper loses out on nothing, but all of a sudden the GST revenue goes through. Now, if you all did that, if we as a nation and even just as a group did all that at the petrol stations of this nation in one day, can you imagine what would happen? Well, I'll tell you what would happen. You'd block up all the roads because there's a lot of people that need to go into petrol stations every day, and there's a lot of Indians behind the counter who aren't going to let you walk out without paying that 10%. They'll call the police. There'll be a kerfuffle. Now, don't take my advice on this. Thinking from the hip, let's not start a movement just yet. Because there may well be something in the tax law, and this would be something for Cass maybe to give some advice on. There may be something in the tax laws that says, a business owner has to collect the GST or they go to jail for 25 years. Well, okay, we can live with that. We won't let them go to jail for 25 years because clearly we don't want them to go to jail for 25 years for not collecting the tax that I'm not willing to pay. So that could force something. Petrol is used. There's a lot of it used every day, and the government makes billions out of it. But I don't know, how would it work? Somebody's just said, EcoElectives just said you'd get arrested if you did that at the servo. Well, 250 people getting arrested at the local servo is going to fill up the local police station real quick. How many local servos do you have in your area? Multiply that by 250 people per servo per hour. Who are they going to lock up? And for how long? And every time you lock another person up, don't you think they're all going to be screaming in there about the injustice of the taxes we're being charged because the government refuses to provide that it can legally charge those taxes? Oh, but we've got to pay for the roads. Yeah, we do. And there are other ways that we, the people, can do that. We don't need a government. Not this sort of government. Not a government that doesn't listen to the people. Not a government that just makes its own decisions for 3 years and then comes out and tries to glad hand us in the election cycle so that we'll give them another 3 years, which is all a fucking joke anyway, a farce. But at the moment, it's the only farce we have to play with in town. So until such time as we stop playing children's games, we stop saying, oh, I'm not going to talk to you because you said something bad about me. Get it all behind us. Draw a line under it. Let's move forward. If you are genuinely on the side of the people, it won't matter what's been said in the past. We've all got things we could say about what you said in the past. All right? We've all got that shit, particularly on the politicians, but on each other as well. We've all got it. So let's draw a line under it. Let's move on and let's come together. Let's work with some real plans. Let's create FBN Media as a platform for all of us. And let's start singing off the same prayer book, or at least the same page in the same prayer book. Because we're going to do a lot of praying. We're going to need to. For the guidance, the enlightenment of many people, the protection of many, many people. It all starts with you standing up, folks. It all starts with you standing up. Haven't I prattled on tonight? And I'm not even at the end of my book, but I'm going to end it there. Thank you for sticking with me again tonight, folks. It's nice to see so many folks across all the channels tonight. Good to see Suey in Project Matilda. And if you haven't been over to Project Matilda, they've got a whole new website, projectmatilda.com, worthwhile checking out. If you haven't been and liked and subscribed our two new YouTube channels, VOFHQ, which doesn't have too much up on it at the moment. I'll aim to get something up in the next few days. And FBN Media at YouTube. Please go and like and subscribe. We want to be able to live stream on those channels at some stage. I've got to get 1,000 subscribers on each of them before we can do that. So no rush, but if you could get across there and do that, that'd be great. Vince will be uploading a little bit of stuff into the FBN Media channel. We're going to go through some of my older shows. Going to try and get a couple of the old Ricardo interviews out and have a look at some of the things that he said a few years ago and compare them to today. I'd like to see where we stand, how much has changed, and not just from Ricardo's perspective, but from everybody. We've all had a lot to say. I plan on digging out a lot of the shit that's come out of my mouth and doing a fact check on myself, which could prove to be rather interesting. And I think DT will be involved in that. Oh, yes, and DT will be joining the team. He will come on the road when we hit the road to certain places at any rate. Certainly, the plan is that he will be part of the journey into far north Queensland in May, which we're really looking forward to getting up and doing. In fact, there is a great event happening in Mareeba, 10, 11, 12 of May. It's a wheelbarrow challenge. Now, I don't know whether or not it's possible. I haven't asked. But if you're a bit of a healthy, fit fanatic, you can go online, check out the wheelbarrow relay race, Mareeba. It's Mareeba to Chiligo. It's about 140 kilometers. And it's on the 10th, 11th, and 12th of May. Now, it's a teams relay event. Now, I don't know. Do you want to get a Voice of Freedom team together? If it's something you're interested in doing, let us know. We are going to the event. All right. We're going to do some broadcasting for the event. We're going to live stream it and carry on. It won't be a Voice of Freedom. It'll be FBN doing that. But Daniel will be part of that too. We'll go and do a lot of color stories while we're up there. But if you are interested in being part of a wheelbarrow relay, 140 kilometers over 3 days, apparently big pub in the middle on night one, where a good evening is had, and then the next day a leisurely sort of 70-kilometer walk into town. You don't have to walk all of it. That's why it's a relay. You swap team members in and out. If it's something you're interested in putting together, then email me, carl@vofhq.com. I do have a bus. We can supply some support services along the way. right up to a certain point, because unless you're out the front, we have to be at the finish line for whoever gets there first. So you can have a bit of a go. But if it's something you feel you might be up for, I certainly know a certain personal trainer in Melbourne who claims to be extremely fit, and walking is one of the things she advocates for me. So I don't know, maybe she can get a little team together and get into far north Queensland for that. I would be prepared to walk a part of it, absolutely. But as I say, I'm the only one in our group who can drive the bus. So my excuse, I will drive the bus. I will do a little bit though. All right, folks, love to hear from you. Health questions. If you aren't aware already, on the 14th of April, IMOP is being relaunched as a new political party called Heart. Now, that launch is going to happen in Sydney. I'm going to be doing an event at Oberon on the 12th, which is on the backside of the Blue Mountains. And on the 14th, I plan to be in Sydney for the launch of the Heart Party with Michael and his lovely wife, Barbara O'Neill. After that, we will live stream that event. After that, I will sit down with Michael and Barbara and have a bit of an interview. I would really be interested in your questions for Barbara regarding herbal medicine or natural medicine, that sort of thing. If you have any particular questions that you would like to ask her, if there is a certain treatment that you might be seeking or looking for advice on, then please email health@vofhq.com, health@vofhq.com, and I will ask those questions of her when I see her. Now, I'm unsure exactly how an interview with Barbara is going to play out. I have somewhere in my mind that I'm not allowed to play it until she's out of the country. So if that is the case, then I'll be hanging on to it until she leaves the country. But rest assured, if you send me a question, I will ask that question of her, and I'm sure you'll get an answer as only she can provide. I'm really looking forward to sitting down and learning more about some of the magnificent remedies for things that she has knowledge of, that come straight out of our gardens, straight out of our forests, straight out of our streams and rivers. It's just amazing. All right, folks, I'm going to love you and leave you on a very sad note tonight. Across the Easter weekend, it was made pretty clear that the Easter Bunny is not slowing down, but I think has changed the flavors in his eggs a bit, because the Easter egg that I got didn't taste like the Easter eggs of old, and consequently I didn't eat it. Chocolate's a bit too much for me at any rate. But the other thing that was proven is, sadly, there were 22 dickheads on our roads that had aspirations that outweighed their abilities in some way, shape or form, and have now added themselves to our lists of the dead on our roads. I thank God every day that you weren't one of them. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!